Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we have a cool announcement when it comes to Enlisted, and it's the fact that the Battle of Tunisia is coming. The emphasis on the Devblog is of new units, new vehicles, and also a little bit of a trailer with some new locations as well. Now, Tunisia is going to be coming in a CBT fashion, probably very similar to how the Battle for Berlin came out. Maybe there'll be stages, but the main thing is there'll probably be a pack that you have to buy in order to get access to it. And we'll see hopefully that information pretty soon. The thing is, with this major update, we're getting a bunch of mechanics changes, which is really nice. We're getting a bunch of new content. This is a very bright time for Enlisted, and also with the addition of Britain and also some Italian elements, we'll have to see how much they actually affect the whole campaign, since at the end of the day it still is Britain versus Germany, plus all of the mechanic stuff with weapons that we saw the other day. Hopefully we'll see a setup which is very, very nice. I'm looking forward to this campaign for many different reasons. The main one being the fact that I've played Germany 3 times over now with very little difference between them. Hopefully when it comes to Italy, they'll be slightly different than the Germans that we see all over the place. And obviously the British faction is always nice to see, and their unique weapons as well. So in the trailer, we have a few things that aren't mentioned in the Devblog. The first one is the A13s, which are in there for the British. It's kind of surprising to see the A13s instead of something like a Crusader, but maybe that is going to be the early version of the British tanks. Hopefully we see some more vehicles, I'm sure we will, going on. And also we see a tank destroyer from the Italians. This is the 75mm tank destroyer we'll get into in a little bit. They also have a decent emphasis on motorcycles in the teaser as well, with a few close-up shots and a shot at the end of them. This is obviously something that they've been pushing a decent amount. We're going to have to see what the motorcycle squads look like and if they're going to be useful around the battlefield. I'm guessing Tunisia is going to be a lot more open than maps like Berlin and Normandy. My guess is it's going to be much more similar to the Battle of Moscow with its open assault maps, maybe even more open. So mobility is going to be incredibly important in the grand scheme of things. There's also a few other areas of it. It seems like they're bringing in the effects that we've seen in the Battle of Moscow campaign. In the Battle of Moscow campaign, on one of the maps, there is kind of a fog or a haze that can come down, meaning that you actually get separated from the other half of the map as it comes down, so you can't snipe across it and try and give support. My guess is in Tunisia, it's going to come in a much larger way than it is implemented in the Moscow campaign, where you're going to have stuff like sandstorms, which are going to reduce visibility a lot, meaning that infantry will be able to move faster and also not be annihilated by stuff such as tanks. They also have a part talking about the missions that are going to come to Tunisia in the form of North African cities and also towns and open areas. Basically, they say when the OBT of the new campaign launches, so not CBT but OBT, we will have several missions prepared, such as fights in the large city center, near farm settlements, and rural areas in the mountains, in the precarious gorge nearby the palaces, around military bases, and naturally the wide open desert plains where every oasis can greet you either with refreshing shade or a spray of bullets. This sounds awesome. The actual setting of North Africa in general is beautiful. Every game or video game that I've played which has had it in has left a special mark on me, just because of the fact that I really like the general aesthetic of North Africa. You know, the architecture is absolutely stunning, and they also leave in something else in the missions part which should not be forgotten. They've also said, we have also prepared new secondary objectives and even missions with new, unique winning criteria, such as the destruction of certain strategic objectives. So that could be blowing up bridges, could be destroying water towers, could be destroying railways, who knows? But they say that they're going to have a bit of information about that later on. Now, in Enlisted, we've had pretty much the capture zone stuff, right? So in the assault maps, you have to capture the points. In the domination maps, you have to capture the points. A lot of people have said that this is quite stale. I personally am fine with this thing. I like the fact that you have centralized areas that you fight around. But when it comes to, more objectives, they're throwing them in as well. So you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting a bit of the domination stuff with the capture points, and you're gonna also get unique objectives, probably based around certain maps. So we're gonna have to see how these work out, because I feel like once people work out the most efficient way of doing them, then it may be a little bit hard to stop them. But we're gonna have to see. Another thing also on these maps is there is a lot of buildings here which have multi-stories to them. It'll be interesting to see how far you can go up with them. You could probably go all the way to the top if we compare it to missions that already exist in Enlisted, but we'll have to see is probably the best way of putting it. I'm really looking forward to the maps in this one. One of the things with Enlisted that is really different between the campaigns is the maps, general map design, and also general look. So that to me is one of the biggest selling points of new campaigns, and at least in the screenshots that we've seen here, they look wonderful. They also talk about weapons and say that after the open beta starts, there'll be a 26 levels of range. So basically, you'll have 26 levels on either side of the campaign to get into when it comes to squads, weapons, vehicles, and all of that wonderful stuff. Obviously, in CBT, it'll probably be a little bit less, but these are the plans for OBT. And they show a picture of a British soldier, which looks like a Tommy gun with a round drum magazine. Now, I'm not a gun nut, so I might be wrong about that, but I apologize if I am, but at least that's what it shows. Then, we also have two other weapons that they're bringing along to show. The first one is the British Boys Anti-Material Rifle. This is a, basic anti-tank rifle. It has a 5-round magazine on it, and if it's anything like the other anti-tank rifles in the other campaigns, it may be a little bit rough. It was actually nicknamed the Elephant Gun during the Second World War due to the size of it and also large bore, so it's probably going to be quite hard to move around the place, but I am looking forward to it. Hopefully it's more similar to something like the PTRD that we see from the Soviets instead of the ones that the Germans have, which I've always felt definitely lack a little bit of damage. Then we also have another gun, which is for the Italians. It is the Armaguerra Mod 39. This is a gun which is a semi-automatic one, which is pretty nice. So there will be semi-auto ones available for Tunisia. It is Italian-born, and it was designed in 1939, produced during the war, but only fewer than 500 of them were actually built. So unfortunately, not a huge development or not a huge amount was made, but it will be available in Tunisia, and that's what makes it pretty fun. Also, they talk about another Italian gun, the bolt action, the Carcano model 1941 M41. So we're going to have to see if that is the starter gun. Generally what they do is they do a bolt action to start with, going into semi-autos, because of obviously the different powers that you have from the different guns. I'm looking forward to these a lot. Hopefully they're great. Very much nice to see some new weaponry. And along with the A13, which was shown in the trailer, we also have a few new vehicles. The first one being the Grant 1. This is obviously very similar to the M3 Lee that we see from the Americans, but it is a British version with, of course, the different turret on the top. It will have access to the 37mm on the top of it, and then the powerful 75 cannon on the bottom. The Grant is a very fun vehicle, and I'm very much looking forward to it. It'll also be interesting to see how they do the dual shooting on it. I don't think we've actually had a vehicle yet in Enlisted which has 3 separate sets of weapons. So you've got the machine guns, the 37 and the 75 on this thing. Generally it's only been 2 before. So I'm guessing we're going to get a primary weapon, secondary weapon, and then tertiary weapon idea going on. But I'm very happy to see this thing. You'll be able to lob HE with the 75 and then AP with the 37 to deal with other vehicles. The Grant is a huge target though, and also doesn't have a ton of armor on it. It just has a ton of crew instead, and should be pretty nice. The other one is the 75-32 M41 tank destroyer. Now, I've talked about this before when it comes to Enlisted, when they announced the Panzer 470 and also the Su-85. I don't understand how tank destroyers actually get in Enlisted. The game itself is very much tailored around light tanks, medium tanks, maybe some heavy tanks, because they have the ability to deal with infantry and also deal with other tanks. Tank destroyers, not too much. The 75-32 M41 tank destroyer has a pretty okay gun. It depends what rounds that they give it, whether they give it heat or HE or AP, and it should be alright, but against infantry it's going to be pretty bad. It's not going to be too useful, and the armor is not really up to snuff. So if you compare these two vehicles, the Grant is really awesome, and then the 75-32, well, is not. So we'll see how those match up, even if they have to. So that is the end of the Devblog, and I've got to say, I'm incredibly happy. I'm looking forward to this a lot. It's something that has been on the radar for a while, and I'm just happy to see it finally coming to CBT, and then eventually OBT for everybody. CBT you will have to purchase an early access pack for, which will be fine, I think. You know, that's the common way of doing these things. And as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd like to thank BRFC, Swollen Ostrich, Teddy, John Ryman, Universe A, Conte Baraka, Eugens Terry, Ambrosius McClellan, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Lafouche, Barine, and Samuel Schlick for supporting the channel.